who are you going to for your football knowledge when you make these decisions? I can remember meeting with your father and Carl Peterson in February 1989. Just came back from being coached by Marty Schottenheimer in the Pro Bowl. And they called me in the office. I sat down and talked to them. I said, guys, look, no more slogans, okay? No more blame, no more scapegoats. There's one guy out there you need to hire, and that's Marty Schottenheimer. And if you don't hire him, everything else is just BS and smoke. But I'm going to be here regardless. And they got him. And it was a lot of years of success. And he was the director of that. He was the guy that spearheaded this whole thing that made that thing good. I can also remember the Scott Pioli issue, talking about Scott, about coming in as a GM. I contacted a guy that he worked with and coached up there in New England with for a long time, somebody I respect a lot and does a great job at his position. And he said, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't trust the guy with my franchise.
Each of us has our own unique background and story of how we became a part of Chiefs Kingdom.
Our reach is far and wide with fans all over the world cheering on our Kansas City Chiefs.
Everyone donning the red and gold has figuratively signed that mutual agreement and come together for one common purpose.
For 76,000 of us at a time to descend upon Arrowhead, man our stations, let out our loudest battle cry to the tune of 142.2 decibels, and make that stadium rock until our opponents beg for mercy.
We are unrelenting in our pride for this city, these players, and this team. This is the show for the Allies, Arrowhead Allies.
Welcome in to Arrowhead Allies, everybody. The 53-man roster has been finalized, and we have a very special guest joining us tonight to break that down and a lot more. Mr. Bill Maas, everybody. Welcome, former Kansas City Chiefs defensive tackle, the best analyst in the biz, especially when it comes to Chiefs Kingdom, as you saw in our intro. Bill, thank you for joining us. You're now officially a fellow ally. How's it going?
Great. Hey, man, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Love being with you. Big day here at Arrowhead, right?
Very big day, and we got to get to the big news. Before we get into that 53-man roster, Chris Jones, they've placed him on the reserve did not report list. His holdout continues. I want to get your thoughts on that, as well as just some of his shenanigans going on throughout the offseason, saying he'll show up week 8. Somebody talked about the fines. He says he can afford that. The Michael Bay thing, where Michael Bay put out that he's hanging out with Chris Jones. He just said he quit the team. It's crazy. And then this past weekend, photos come out that he's hanging out in town, in and around town with his agents. They're in Kansas City. So what do you make of all of this Chris Jones debacle that we seem to be going through?
Yeah, so, I mean, there's not really much to make of it except for what it is. And it's a negotiation. And he's taking the stance, one in which, he chooses to hold out and try to force a long-term deal. The Chiefs had prepared for this for pretty much the off season. They knew this was coming. It wasn't any surprise. I think the surprise might be is where they're at right now. And look, make no mistake about it. The reason Brett Veach is here is because he knows how to manage a team and work with the salary cap. When John Dorsey was here, John was really good with personnel, but John was really bad with the salary cap. And anytime a veteran player came up with his contract, he just signed him for whatever they asked for. You can go down a list. Yeah, Justin Houston, Dwayne Bowe, on and on. And the return that they were getting out of them at that age for the price they paid for him was minimal. Andy Reid was, he was frustrated by the situation when he was there. He's like, look at these guys. What am I getting out of them? And look what I'm paying for them. And they're on the injured reserve. They were struggling with injuries, battled injuries throughout all of that. So that's why Brett's here. Now, so they know how to manage the salary cap. They know how to put the team first, so to say. The question is now, where do they go and what do they do? Do they fall back on the things they've established? Do they, give in, or do they stay the course? It looks to be as though they're going to stay the course. They're not going to disrupt the team overpaying somebody. Look who's going through it right now. Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going through it right now. The Los Angeles Rams are going through it right now. Yeah, they won a Super Bowl, but they went all in to win that Super Bowl. For the Rams, they had a reason, new stadium and all those things that go along with that. They went all in and overpaid, and now they're stuck with the teams that they have right now, and they're not very good.
Bill, 30 years ago at this time, Kansas City was euphoric about Joe Montana mania. But if you look at that offseason leading up to that, we lost you to the Green Bay Packers, and Neil Smith was holding out for his he just got franchise tagged, and if Neil Smith did not sign that franchise tag with the Chiefs until 48 hours before kickoff, before the Chiefs played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that first game of the season. From what you remember about that offseason, because we've touched on it previously with J.J. Burton as well as Tim Grunhard, his past contract negotiations. 30 years ago, when you became a Green Bay Packer, did you bring that contract back to Carl Peterson, or was that something that was pretty cut and dry?
It was cut and dry, and the reason being, at that point in time, that was the very first off season of actual free agency. There was a Plan B free agency prior to that for a couple of years, but the open market hit in that year in '93, and those are the things that the strike was about, and that's what came out of the strike, and they were implemented in 1993, and that was the first year, and there was a bunch of teams paying for other players to come in. There was a bunch of guys jumping teams around the league, and that was money that was unseen at that time to be able to get paid instead of what you had here. In hindsight, you always want to end up where you started. That's what every player's dream is, but it's not always reality right now. And in today's market, you've only got a certain amount of years that you can exploit that. And so you've got to go get what's yours if they're offering it to you. And
the reason why I asked that question, because everybody is always saying, because social media obviously expands the topic of he will take a team-friendly deal. He only wants this. Was the Green Bay Packer offer towards you comparable to what Carl Peterson was offered? Was it substantially more than taking a team-friendly deal?
Yeah, I wanted a place that wanted me to be there. I didn't understand a lot of things, though, that were happening at that time because it was all new to us. But for me, I didn't understand platooning defensive linemen. That was unheard of, right? We played every snap of every game, and that's what you did. So there was a change that was coming along that I didn't understand. So that was then. But for right now, where they're at, when you're talking about the Chris Jones issue and where he's at, I think it's all about guaranteed money, and that's what means the most to guys. How much money of that is going to get guaranteed? And for the Chiefs, obviously, they're looking to protect those later years as he gets older in age.
Yeah. So what's up, Bill? So man, I just got off of a Twitter where I was in a group and we were all talking, and a lot of fans seem to be turning, a little away from Chris Jones because I don't think that they truly understand the aspect of, a business. So better than any of us of the importance of, of course you want to play for the team you love, a team you have a chance to win with, but you also want to make sure that you get paid. And for someone like Chris Jones at 28 years old, this may be his last big payday. So I just wanted to see, what was your thoughts on that, looking at it as a player, because most of us are, journalists, are fans. We just attacking it, mostly looking at it from the team's, perspective. But as a former player, what's your thoughts on what Chris Jones and his agency is doing?
Yeah, player, you're like, hey, you want your buddy or your teammate, you get everything you can. We understand it's business. but then again, it is business. And if you think about it in a business sense, right now, none of this makes sense for Chris Jones to be out. You can never make that money back. Never. It just won't happen. And then with the year left, if he does come back and play, and they could franchise tag him next year, which would push it back another year. So, you know, he's at the point now, in my opinion, that you know, I think he's probably getting bad advice. It wouldn't surprise me if he's in here tomorrow. But I think he's getting bad advice, trying to force this issue when the Chiefs really ultimately have the upper hand in this deal on what they can do legally.
Well, Bill, I'm still hung up on the intro there where we saw you famously saying to the organization to please not hire Scott Pioli. And I hope the Chiefs sent you a Super Bowl ring or something just for that take in and of itself, because although to be fair, had that not happened, we may not have got to where we got here. So it's all relative, you know, but that was a great take. Obviously you wanted the Chiefs to hire Marty Schottenheimer. It happened, and warned to get Scott Pioli, but those are years long gone. So just wanted to talk about the rest of the 53. I mean, we saw the trade go down today of Smith-Marsette getting traded to the Panthers. Cam Jones makes the team, a relatively unknown rookie free agent out of Indiana. Did anything else surprise you? Like, what jumps off the page to you today as the roster now is finalized?
I think the quarterback surprised me a little bit. I guess the play is there. They both get through waivers and put them on the practice squad. That was surprising. I think you know, cutting, you know, all those defensive linemen too, given the situation you're in. You get a trade. You picked up Reed Farrell from the Raiders, but you know, where's Wharton in this, and who are your rushers, and letting the big guy go inside too. Those things were a little bit surprising to me, and I think there's a lot of question mark too about the 7 receivers, right? If you look at those 7 receivers, Andy's never kept 7 before. You look at that group with Sky Moore and Richie and Ross and Kadarius Toney, Rashee Rice, and you know, and MVS and Watson, and all those except for MVS. Everybody else is a question mark. Now you see the upside on them. You see some flashes, but everything is what they were projected as, right? Tony with the injuries, Sky Moore, is he going to make that jump in the second year? There's a lot of question marks and unknown about the wide receiver position. I think by keeping 7 of them, you're just hedging your bet, thinking, look, there's a lot of talent there. One of these things has to pan out, right? I see what I see in Rashee Rice. To me, this is a player that if he wants to be great, he will be. He just needs to work at it. He has all the special qualities about him that I can see it. I can see it in his body and the way he plays the game and the way he runs routes. There's a lot of upside to this guy. So there's a lot to be excited there if these things develop and come to fruition, right? But right now, there's a lot of unknown.
Yeah, and talk a little bit about Justin Ross. You mentioned Rashee there. I know he went undrafted. He's got a ton of injury concerns with his spine, now with his foot this past offseason. But do you see the ability still there in him, because he was so explosive in college before all the issues in his health started arising and could have been a first-round pick, a high first-round pick? Do you still see the ability and the skill set to become a great wide receiver, maybe a number 1 in this offense eventually?
Yeah, you know, so I see it with a bunch of these guys, right? I think that Kadarius is there. I think Rashee Rice is there. I think Ross is there. Watson. I mean, that's what I'm saying. There's so much unknown. They all have the potential. I mean, which one's going to pan out? Or are we just going to go through streaks of injuries and you know, unknown again? I mean, we have to see one of these guys or 2 of these guys really have to play out and have to own it and want it and go after it with everything they have, because there's talent there. There's great talent. And I can't imagine being a wide receiver in the NFL and being on a team where your quarterback is Patrick Mahomes, and you don't want to be everything you can be, right? You don't want if he's my guy and he's my quarterback, I can't help but think as a young wide receiver, I'm going to be the next Jerry Rice. I'm going to be the next dominant wide receiver with a quarterback like this. I have all the intangibles. I'm just going to work at it and keep working at it. I mean, that's the only way I think you would want to go about it with everything that's around you.
You know, Bill, there's a lot of, with Chris Jones' absence, like I said, there's always a miracle. They could get it done. You said hypothetically, you said he could be there tomorrow. And like I said a few minutes ago, Neil Smith showed up 48 hours before game 1 in 1993. So this all could get done. Looking at 6th-round draft pick Keandre Coburn, as well as Derek Nottie and the rest of the depth on the defensive line, how much pressure would you feel this puts on a rookie if Chris Jones holds out the first game of the season?
You know, I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot for those guys inside, actually. You know, Derek Nottie's there. Colburn. You know, these guys. I watched them play in the preseason, and there's a lot left to be desired. I mean, they've got to really improve their play, and you know, Spags is going to have to come up with some things to get these guys one gap. You know, give them one gap to give them the opportunity to slant and blow something up in one gap. That's what you have to do when you have guys that when you struggle along the defensive line. You start slanting them, you start moving them, you start giving them penetration on one gap to get the penetration across the line. Because as I've watched right now, I mean, they've got it's not so much the pass rush which you need in this league, but you know, the run game.
Yeah.
The gap control right there is you know, it really needs a lot of work. And when you have a linebacking core this young and this talented and this good, it's the deepest we've had in a long time at the linebackers. You know, you've got to keep those guys out of their lap. You have to keep those offensive linemen away from them. So you're going to have to do some things to get creative in the middle there. And then on the outside, you're asking a lot for George Karlaftis to step up and Mike Gannon. Where's your rush coming through with Amenahue gone and with Chris Jones out of there? So, you know, yeah, I mean, look, we 21, we weren't that good on defense either, and we got to an AFC Championship game in a Super Bowl. But yeah, there's some things there that you know are alarming, I think. And you line up against the Detroit Lions week 1, and they're going to come at you. They're going to come at you hard.
So, Bill, you know, you were talking about the D lineman inside. How important do you think the outside, the D ends, are going to be? Because as you can see, the past few years, Veach has kind of like put a sort of focus on that 2 first-rounders that are D ends. You go bring in B.J. Thompson, you know. So how important is it going to be on the D ends when it comes to the pass rush, especially with Chris Jones not out there with them early on?
Yeah, so, you know, it'll be interesting to see. You know, there's still another day here after waivers go through, and it wouldn't surprise me if there was another move, potentially. I don't know. What's the cap like? Can Dunlop come back? Can you bring him back for a year because he knows the system? Your best pass rusher for the last 3 years was an interior defensive lineman, hands down, right? And he's not back yet. I would expect him to be here. I really do. I just can't see anybody being that stubborn and just being not smart about the situation. I would expect him to be here real soon.
Okay.
Well, Bill, you played here for 9 years. You call Kansas City home.
Yeah.
You're one of the best Chiefs analysts out there. And I just kind of want to talk about Chiefs Kingdom, the fervor of the fan support that exists here. Kind of in the 90s, as things were really getting going, you were there for the good, the bad, and the ugly in Kansas City when Arrowhead Stadium often resembled what Kauffman Stadium looks like now. And to see where this fan base has come in the 90s, you guys laid that foundation. And now, 2 Super Bowls later, do you think, how can you compare the fervor of Kansas City Chiefs fans in the early 90s as things are getting rolling there was a very hungry fan base. You wanted to win. You wanted that Super Bowl so bad we could taste it. And now that it's happened twice, does the fan base lose that hunger a little bit and become a little entitled in a way? Do you see any of that?
I don't think so. I think there's the love fest between the Kingdom and the Chiefs is just remarkable. Look, they waited a long time, 30 years. If you're talking about the 90s, we were waiting for that one guy under center, right? And for 30 years, and then we finally get them, and look at the great things that happened. We played defense. We ran the ball. We played the clock game. We played the field position game. We did everything we could do to try to find ways to win. And we were in the playoffs every year, but we just didn't have that guy to push us through the playoffs. And they stayed with us. And Chiefs Kingdom was there all the way through it. I was there and played in the stadium where when the opposing team broke the huddle, I heard the snap count. And so – no, it was great because I was the first one off the ball. You know, they would be like on two. I'm like, thank you. I didn't hear anything, and then I went from there to the roar in 1990 with Elway in the back of the end zone, where it was so loud he couldn't hear himself think. And he tried to call the timeout. He asked the referees for timeout. You know the whole story. So I was there from both ends of it, and I got to experience it, and it's fun. And every time I go out to Arrowhead for the home games now, it's still the same. Nothing's changed. 30 years of that love and that Kingdom coming strong.
Well, Bill, since we're talking about the old days, Clint brought it up there. That leads me into this. The Hall of Fame and Marty Schottenheimer passed over again as a senior candidate. Do you feel like he's deserving of the Hall of Fame? Do you feel like it will happen one day for him?
Yeah, I mean, it should. I mean, with the number of wins he's had over the years and the different places he's done it, he took over a bunch of teams that were downtrodden at the time, and turned it around by putting in his system, and his system worked. It was proven. You know, I mean, there's a lot of people going in the Hall now, and deservingly so, because I think there's been so many that have been overpassed. Look at the senior list of players. I mean,
yes,
every one of those guys deserves to be in. So, yeah, he'll get his due, and I'll be glad to see it.
Since we're going back, let's go way back, Bill. Who is your favorite Kansas City Chiefs defensive coordinator? Bud Carson, Walt Corey, or was it Bill Cowher, or is it somebody I'm not mentioning?
Yeah, wow. Bud was really interesting. You know, he was the designer of the Pittsburgh Steelers Super Bowl defensive coordinators. And he had me playing like a cock nose tackle, which was pretty fun because I just jumped all over the place. The center never knew where I was going. And you know, Walt Corey was he was my first defensive line coach when I got to the Chiefs. He just passed away, and really special bond. He was a Pennsylvania guy from Western Pennsylvania, and he was more like a father figure, where he did a great job with us on the defense, that's for sure. But it was really personable, the deal. It was a personal relationship, and you don't usually have that with a lot of coaches. And for me, that personal bond with Walt was really special. And I think you could say that with Art Still and Mike Bell and Duron Cherry and Albert Lewis. I mean, Walt he cared about you. He really cared about you. So that was neat. When Bill Cowher came in with Marty, that was just a really different deal. I learned more about football than I've ever known about football when those guys came in. And it was enjoyable because I'm a guy that likes to learn. And they told us everything. So it just wasn't, here's the play, you do this on this play. No, it wasn't anything like that at all. Everything, each and every position was spelled out, and why you're doing what you're doing and how it affects everybody else if you don't get it done. So knowing that, you felt a strong accountability towards your teammates to getting the job done as it was drawn out for us. So the knowledge that Bill Cowher and Marty put on us on the defensive side of the ball and the offense as well, that was really something different.
So, Bill, I'm out here in LA, a Chiefs fan, been a Chiefs fan since the early 90s when I was much younger. What's your thoughts on seeing, the Kingdom now, how it's become a national thing? Growing up in LA, you didn't really see any Chiefs fans. That's why it was so crazy for me. Like, okay, I can't really talk Chiefs football with anybody because there's no fans that's like me. But now everywhere you go in LA, there's a bar. There's a Chiefs fans bar that you can go to. Shout out to Jalapeno Pete's.
Sweet.
I went to Arizona last year. There was a Chiefs bar. Now, the team is so much bigger. So just comparing it from when you were with the Chiefs in the late 80s to now, just to see the fan growth. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it was really, I got to see it firsthand up front as a player from the 80s into the 90s. And in the 90s, every year we got better. And you just watched it grow and flourish. And fans would come out of the woodworks, and they packed the stadium, and they packed events, and they'd go to everything. And anything that was Chief, the Kingdom was out there to support it. Now it's gone international. When you become a model franchise like the Chiefs have become, it's not just a local thing. Now it's an international thing. It's cool to be a Chiefs fan. It's cool to be in the Kingdom. And we're in right now, and I think it's going to be that way for quite some time.
Oh, that's well said, Bill. I never thought I'd be cool. I never thought I'd be a part of a I'm also a Mizzou football fan here. So I never thought growing up I'd wind up being the guy that people envied. It's just been a crazy experience for me, being used to just heartbreaking playoff losses and disasters.
Yeah.
And Scott Pioli, you mentioned, things like that. But Bill, as the season's about to get going here next Thursday Night Football, the Lions come in. When you start looking at Patrick Mahomes' era teams, you look at the expectations being the Super Bowl, and I think this team is no different. A lot of people have the Chiefs favored to repeat, but to do that, there's a lot of work to be done. You mentioned some things that could possibly hamstring the team going forward. So when you look around the rest of the AFC West, we know how good the AFC's gotten. All the good quarterbacks that are here in this league that the Chiefs are going to have to get through again. So as you start to navigate through what this Chiefs schedule is going to be like, what this season is going to look like for Kansas City, what could be something that stops them, or what team could be in the way for Kansas City to get back to the Super Bowl, number 58 in Las Vegas, because that's where the Chiefs need to be, man, come February.
Yeah, so the one thing you always have to do as an organization is continue to get better. If you're not getting better, you're getting worse. You're not going to stay the same. Nobody stays the same. The next day, you're like, tomorrow, you're either going to be better or you're going to be worse as a person, right? And as a team, that's how you have to look at it. You can't get caught up in thinking about, oh, well, we got this person and that person and this person. Well, the league's going to pass you because, look, they've got young kids coming out now that can do things better than the guys that have been doing it for some time in the league. That's just the evolution of the league. Week 1 in the NFL, you're going to hear a name that's going to come up, and you're going to shock everybody. And where did he come from? And it's going to be the talk of the league, and that's just the evolution of the league and of football. Everybody's getting better. If you set the standard, whatever that standard is, somebody's looking to surpass it and has the ability to do it. And so there's some teams out there that are going to get better overnight. That you're going to be, well, where did they come from? And that's just the way the league works. Now, obviously, you know what's in our division. You also know what the New York Jets have in the division. You also know about Cincinnati. And you look at that division Cincinnati's in, right? I mean, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Cincy, Cleveland. I mean, my gosh. And then the AFC, what's going to happen down in Miami? You look at the East, what's going to happen there? So, the league just keeps evolving and it keeps getting better, and you have to stay in front of the curve. And I think that's the one great thing that we've seen thus far with Andy and Brett.
Yeah, well said. And Bill, kind of last thing before we get you out of here, you've been so gracious with your time. We thank you so much. We started with Chris Jones. I'm going to end with Chris Jones here. Does this go so far awry, so far off course that we could possibly end up in any sort of a trade scenario? I brought one up last week. Chris Jones for Jonathan Allen of Washington. a year younger. He's got 3 more years on his contract. Good player, not Chris Jones, obviously. I think the Chiefs would have to get picks back as well, not just a player swap. But could this possibly head in that scenario? Or like you mentioned, he's got a year left. They could franchise tag him. They're not thinking trade.
I would be surprised, and you can sense that Andy's a little bit frustrated, because when you have a team like the Chiefs have, a very talented team, a team that knows how to work together, great chemistry from one another, when you have those things in line, and as an organization, all you're thinking about is winning another Super Bowl, right? They've been able to do it. They want to be the best. They've established a platform on how to do it. And when one of your key components isn't there, frustration sets in. You start thinking about the other guys and how it affects everybody and how it affects the team. It's so I would be really surprised if something didn't get done real soon here. I can't foresee the scenario which they let this get so ugly, because I don't think Chris is that guy unless his agents push him to that mode. But I don't think he's that guy. I think he wants to be here. I think he wants to be playing. I think he wants to be in the locker room with the fellas. And so I anticipate this to get done quickly.
One last little thing here, Bill. You mentioned the agents there. Just could the agents, because we've looked at kind of their client list and this is their one big client, could this be completely client driven or agent driven for Chris Jones? And Chris is like, guys, I don't really know about this. And they're like, hey, you're deserving. You're the best defensive tackle. You deserve the money, and really pushing this so they can get that payday as their one big client is Chris Jones.
Yeah. The way that it's painted there, it sure looks that way. You just have to be careful of who's telling you what. I mean, that's the one you got to be careful of who's giving you advice. It's very, very important to understand, and it's hard. It's really hard because you're so emotional about it. It's you, it's your livelihood, it's what you give to the game, it's your body, and those things. So it's hard to be able to understand where you're at and your place in everything all the time. And so I think Chris might be at that point right now, and I think he may be trying to figure it out on how to make this all work.
Yeah.
Well, Bill, it has been an honor. You are truly the best, my friend. And
thank you.
Thanks for having
giving
me,
us
guys.
your time, man. It's always a pleasure. You're great, and
legend.
We'll have to catch up during the season. Hey, thank you,
Good
man.
stuff.
Appreciate you.
Thank
All
you
right,
very
have
much.
a good one.
You too. Take care.
Yeah, thank you.
There
was really cool.
Bill Maas joining us here to talk about all things Chiefs roster, 53-man roster, guys, it all feels a lot more real as we are here just 9 days away from kickoff. Chiefs and Lions, the roster is finalized. It's time to get to work, man. College football technically started last week. We're going to really get going. Your guy Caleb Williams down there at USC got some action. USC has no defense, so don't see them being a playoff team or going anywhere there. But Caleb Williams, perhaps the next Patrick Mahomes, as people say. College football's underway. Noah and I will be at Mizzou in South Dakota on Thursday night. Things are getting rolling, guys. It all feels so real. We spent the whole offseason, doing interviews. We had Wanya Morris on the show. We had Pat Mahomes on last week, Tim Grunhard, and we had so many interviews, so many great things to talk about this offseason, celebrating Super Bowl 57. But it's time to get real now. Shane Williams, Shaggy Shane. It's time to look forward to what is next, and that is defending the crown, buddy.
Definitely. Before I move any further, I want to give shouts to an Arrowhead Allies follower and friend, and Shaggy Shane follower. His birthday's today. His name is Dick Penix. Let's all say happy birthday, Dick Penix.
Happy birthday, buddy.
Happy birthday.
Wow.
Appreciate you, brother. Hope you have an awesome day, Dick. I know you're watching. All right. About this season, I'm concerned about this game. I mean, I hope we get Chris Jones back. Like I remember we were all excited with the Joe Montana mania 30 years ago that we were overlooking Neil Smith holdout. We hoped it was going to they were going to patch it up, and they patched it up 48 hours before kickoff. Marty Schottenheimer put Neil Smith in on passing situations. After the game, Neil Smith said he was happy to be back, but he was extremely winded after holding out all training camp, preseason, and signing his contract 48 hours before the game down in hot and sweaty humid Tampa Bay. He showed up and played. That's what we got to hold on now. We got to wait for 1 week from today, 48 hours before kickoff. So that'll be in 30 minutes that Chris Jones will sign his extension and be in the same ballpark as Neil Smith, because the Detroit Lions remind me of the 1989 Kansas City Chiefs.
Fair.
That team that barely missed the playoffs, but came back in 1990 and went, I believe, 11-5. They're a good coach team. The Detroit Lions players are starting to buy into what they're doing. So it's not going to be a pushover. And like I said, I hope Chris Jones gets his extension done before 48 hours before kickoff. What do you think, Mike Bill?
Can I say this about the Detroit Lions? I feel about them the same way I feel about the Los Angeles Chargers. Whenever you believe in them, they let you down. So until they prove, everyone wrong, I don't trust in the Detroit Lions. It's going to be a challenging game, for the Chiefs. You're hoping that Chris Jones is there because he is a big part of this defense.
Yeah.
But like I asked Bill, I'm like, man, Veach has been building the edge. Like, he's got some young first-round talent there. He got, a guy like B.J. Thompson that can rush. So I think that, the Chiefs are going to find a way. But I'm just happy some real football is going to be played. Chris Jones was on the team when we had a terrible defense and still made it to the AFC Championship. Chris Jones was on the team. The defense wasn't too great the first Super Bowl Patrick Mahomes was able to win. So I trust in the coaches. I trust in Spags, Daly there on the D-line, that they'll be able to get that defense good enough. I believe that Chris Jones eventually is going to show up and he's going to be ready to go, because this is going to lead to a big payday for him possibly next year, whether with the Chiefs or if he's traded somewhere else. So he's going to be ready to play. I'm just excited that we got our 53 guys, that we kept the 7 receivers that we did, and that we're ready to play some real football games.
Let's do it.
What'd you guys think of Rashee Rice dropping that big pass? I think he might need to take something from Fred Biletnikoff back in the past and
it's just a
use
drop.
some of that stick 'em on there.
It's just a drop. It's a tough drop. I don't know why he didn't turn his body fully around and caught it like a punt return, then scored a touchdown. But it's just a drop. You learn from that stuff. We saw McCole Hardman a few years ago against Buffalo fumble the ball. Patrick went and talked to him. Then he made, a big play and scored a touchdown. So it's just, he's learning. I think we're going to see a lot more Rashee Rice than we saw Sky last year as a rookie. So I think he's going to get his opportunity. And, Bill said it, man. He looks like a guy that can be a player. And I think the Chiefs know that. And I think he's going to play really well for a rookie this year.
Well, to keep beating the dead horse that we always beat, without going back to who was available in the draft.
No, we will. We have to. I've got it pulled up. Let's see.
I think all rookies, for some reason, an Andy Reid system, struggle, and then they do better their second seasons. I mean, we could go back, and we have. And I think Rashee Rice, anything positive that we can get from him this year will be key. Now, that kind of coincides with, well, is Justin Ross a rookie? I don't think he's a rookie because he got to sit and learn. Byron Pringle was in the exact same situation Justin Ross was his rookie season. Byron Pringle missed the entire season, was on injured reserve, and when he came in and started making plays in 2019, filling in for the injured Sammy Watkins, Byron Pringle didn't look like a rookie. Byron Pringle looked like a veteran. So I think Justin Ross won't look like a rookie. I think Rashee Rice will. So anything positively that we can get from Rashee Rice this season, we should all take it.
Yeah. Good with that. The running back situation, guys.
That's
Prince and Pirine both go the way of the dodo. Surprise to me. I really like the upside of both players, but specifically LaMichael Pirine. But they're out of here. And so there they are. Pacheco, McKinnon, Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Hey, I told everybody all offseason long, Andy Reid likes Clyde, and that's why he's going to be there. He's a guy that they know can run the ball when they call the right run plays, more north-south instead of east-west. And then he can catch the ball out of the backfield. And in the red zone, he's so small, sometimes he gets lost, and, Patrick finds a way to find him. So I can see – I was surprised. I thought that they would get a fourth guy because Clyde does get – he's injury-prone. Pacheco is just coming off an injury. McKinnon has a history of injury.
And he's 31 years old.
Yeah, and he's 31 years old, but I'm pretty sure they're going to try to get Prince, or I'm thinking P. Ryan, and bring him to the practice squad just in case. But I knew it would be these three. It's going to be a very productive group. I don't know if we'll have that 1,000-yard runner, but it's going to be a very solid group of guys that can run the ball, pass the ball, and then we have the best run blocking running back in McKinnon. So I like it.
Yeah, I mean, you see there the difference between Andy Reid and Chiefs Kingdom. Andy Reid keeps Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Chiefs Kingdom would have got rid of him and kept P. Ryan or Prince or both. And Andy Reid loves Justin Watson. Chiefs Kingdom hates him and would have kept Smith Marsetto for him. So that's the difference between Andy Reid and Chiefs Kingdom.
Right. And I'm surprised, and it is because I believe, and I've talked to Clay Windler of Red Tribe Cinema specifically about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and what Clay said, and it brings the light of the situation. Andy Reid trusts veterans. And I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and how I look at it, he's been hurt every year he's been in the league, all 3 years. He did have 6 touchdowns last year, which was good before the injury. But I mean, let's be honest. He hasn't shown he's every down NFL running back. He doesn't have speed. He did have 100 yards. It's the very first game as an NFL player, and he looked like, wow, this guy could be special, but it hasn't materialized. So I was shocked that I would have gone with P. Ryan over Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Me too.
Yeah.
I just think that they put Clyde in bad situations. Like a few years ago, I believe it was his rookie year, or maybe this rookie year, he had a huge game against Buffalo when he rushed 140, something like that, because they kept him north-south. They made it simple. Last year against Tampa Bay, he had a big-time rushing game where he rushed for nearly 100 yards because they kept it north-south. So I think if they can they have to realize that he's not a speed back, and all this east-west stuff with him doesn't work. But if they can keep it simple, Clyde can make people miss, and he's hard to bring down once, he gets into the secondary. But, they have to call the right plays. And I think with Pacheco, they don't do a lot of east-west with him. They're like, all right, we're just going to let this guy go forward and pound. And I think that our offensive line is best when guys just go straight ahead instead of trying to do all of this other stuff. So if they can keep it simple as far as rushing the ball with Clyde when he gets an opportunity, then I think he can be a productive third running back.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And Clint, I'm going to come to you with this. Just a couple other surprises in the 53-man roster. See the offensive line here. Mike Caliendo in, Darian Kennard out. And then on the defensive line, we see Malik Herring has made it, and Matt Dickerson has made it. Just kind of, who are these guys? I know Malik Herring was kind of heralded out of Georgia, had some injuries, and maybe they feel like he can come on and be something. Joshua Kando is gone out of that defensive line room. So what do you make of some of these other just kind of, they're not hugely important, the Darian Kennards, but what do you make of this offensive line, defensive line situation? We got a lot of defensive linemen here.
Yeah, Kennard was the guy I liked, drafted in the 5th round out of Kentucky, had an attitude and had the size. It looked like he could play guard or tackle, and that didn't come to fruition. So you have who you have. They kept, just the sheer volume. You've got a lot of depth on the offensive line, clearly. I probably would have cut one of the defensive linemen, Herring, perhaps, and kept one of the, this is all, again, guys, when we're doing this, this is inside baseball. Hate to even use that term. Into the weeds, like we're fine combing this. Okay. Like this roster is I think it's as deep as we've seen in the Andy Reid era. But yeah, along the lines, they're wanting depth. They're building depth. It's there. You know how I kind of feel about it. I don't think it really makes a strong statement either way, other than the Kennard thing is a little strange. You say goodbye to him. We're still unsure about, obviously, the Chris Jones. So that's why you have to go out and do this, of course, making the trade for Neil Farrell, a guy 330 pounds, guys. He's a run stuffer out of Louisiana State University down in Baton Rouge. Yep. I remember watching him play for the LSU Bayou Bengals, the LSU Tigers. And this is a guy that last year played in 9 games and actually had 12 tackles with 2 quarterback hits. This is not somebody that's going to get defensive line penetration a la Chris Jones, but he is somebody that's really going to help, I think, in the run game. Somebody that the Chiefs, I think, had evaluated pretty high up on their board, probably on their board for the 4th or 5th round out of LSU in 2022. comes on board now. And that's what Brett Veach likes to do that. We saw it with Kadarius Toney. Now a part of these trades usually work out in the Chiefs' favor. So I like this for depth.
They kind of chose him over Danny Shelton there, Shane.
Right.
Yeah. The Danny Shelton thing, I think I'm going to trust the defensive line coach as well as the defensive coordinator. If they think that Neil Farron, is that his name?
Farrell.
Neil Farrell is going to be better, then I'm gonna trust them. Myself, and I think we all can speak on this. We've been scarred by LSU defensive tackles and Glenn Dorsey and
Tyson Jackson.
Yeah. But my question is, when Chris Jones comes back, which one of those do we have to cut one of those guys in off the defensive line?
Matt Dickerson. You probably
you beat me to it. Wow, that was fast.
Yeah, you get rid of Matt Dickerson, and you just like you guys were saying, Noah and Clint. It's just about the depth, and it's a long season. The Chiefs aren't playing, just to look cute at the beginning and lose a bunch of games like some teams. They want to come out and they know they're going to win. Like we have top 2 or 3 offense in the league. We just need a defense that's solid enough. We can get by. The focus is once we get to the playoffs, do we have bodies? And I think that the moves that they're making with this roster is that we know who our superstar guys are. We need them, of course. So we need some guys that can give them a break during the regular season. And that's why I think the depth on the defensive line, D-end, D-tackle, even offensive line was so important because, injuries do occur.
Got to ask Noah about this, the linebacking core. I talked about this before we came on, keeping undrafted free agent rookie out of Indiana, Cam Jones, guys. Didn't, get a lot of buzz and coming out of Indiana, coming out of training camp. But Noah, looking at these guys, we know what you get out of Willie Gay, Nick Bolton. That's one of the best tandems. You add Drew Tranquill to that. I think it's one of the best linebacker trios in the NFL. And I know that's a bold statement. Leo Chenal, you drafted last year.
Mm-hmm.
Break down this linebacking core, Noah. So this could be it for Willie Gay. He shows out. He could be the next one to walk off into the sunset, which is probably why you drafted Leo Chenal. So what do we think about this linebacking core, Noah Groniger?
Yeah, it's been interesting to see Leo Chenal line up a little bit at edge and kind of some sub situations and nickel situations, trying to see what he's got, if he can be a weapon coming off the edge. We know what he does in the tackling. He's got death row tattooed on him. And Drew Tranquill is just kind of a versatile do-it-all. Think of maybe Ben Neiman, but talented. They tried to put Ben Neiman in the do-it-all role, Swiss Army knife. He can play back there. He can cover guys, but he couldn't. But Drew Tranquill actually can, so that's going to be interesting. Jack Cochrane is just your kind of special teams guy, and I think Cam Jones showed during preseason that he was a sure tackler, and he's going to be good on special teams, and so that's a little bit of Dave Tobe. And I think Spags was fighting for that a little bit because he saw something on defense that he's a versatile guy and can be kind of that Willie Gay role, not as talented and as speedy as Willie Gay. But if they do eventually have to lose Willie Gay, he's someone that might be able to slot in if he progresses and keeps showing that talent.
Yeah, I like the linebackers, man. I really do. I think that Nick Bolton is a star, and we've seen it all last season. I think he takes that next step as a linebacker. Willie Gay, just with his speed, he is who he is, and let's see if he can take another step. Drew is a big pickup because we thought Willie Gay would be that guy that can cover, in the second level, but he hasn't shown us to be that guy. So we get a guy like Drew, and people forget Leo had 8 sacks, coming out of college, his final year there at Wisconsin. So the expectation even last year was that, all right, let's see how is he going to help as an outside linebacker rush the passer, and I think the Chiefs are like, hey, we may not have Chris Jones. We see Dunlap isn't here. Frank Clark isn't here. So we're going to need more from Leo off the edge. So we're going to try some more things with him and just let him loose. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can go and pick up some sacks, maybe be a guy that can get you 4 to 5 sacks this season, which will be big. And then, with Cochran and Jones, I think they're just for the special teams. You lose guys left and right from the special team. So you need guys that can, step up. And, Dave is like, hey, I need some players. And these are 2 guys that caught his eyes That's
Yeah,
why I believe
because they lost Najee Johnson to a season-ending injury. He was big on special teams. Deion Bush was big on special teams. They let him go, so they're going to need these guys to perform. And I got John Harrison in the comments here. When Omenihu comes back as well after his 6-game suspension, they'll have to make a roster move. So when Chris Jones comes back, hopefully soon, I think Matt Dickerson's gone. And when Charles Omenihu comes back after his week 6 suspension, I think Malik Herring is gone. So those will be the two roster moves on the 2 defensive linemen in, 2 defensive linemen out. I think that's what you'll see there.
Yep, I agree.
I like that. And I like the linebackers, and I like the points you guys have made. But I want to ask you this, Michael. You cover the Los Angeles Chargers.
Mm-hmm.
What did you see in covering the Los Angeles Chargers that you really liked from Drew Tranquil?
No, with Drew, you just saw his cover ability. You know, they were putting him on tight ends and sometimes letting him play one-on-one the way that he was covering the running back. They really trusted him to to guard out there. Usually you would throw a safety, but he's a guy that looks like a tweener linebacker safety guy that can cover and a for sure tackler. So I think that, he's going to be a great asset. Somebody said it best. He's an actually skilled Ben Niemann. So imagine that type of player. I think that's what he's going to bring to the Chiefs. And that's why I think that they're like, hey, let's go and get this guy, see what he does. If he does what we expect him to do, we can bring him back for another maybe 2-year deal, because most likely they're going to lose Willie Gay.
Guys, we got to talk about this because starting about as early as 2013, Noah Groniger and myself predicted that someday, God willing, Blaine Gabbert would be the Chiefs quarterback. We didn't get it exactly right. He's not the Chiefs quarterback, but he is a Chiefs quarterback. He is the Microsoft Touch guy. He is the backup. Shane Bichelle has been waived, and kind of a surprising situation. Shane Bichelle's wife is the Mahomes' realtor. Shane Bichelle is great friends with Patrick Mahomes. Their dads both played professional baseball. They're
Shane
both Texas high school
birthday
quarterbacks.
Party.
Shane was at that might have been the last ride for the Bichelles and the Mahomeses. We see that Mahomes' friends tend to stick on the roster. We remember Garrett Dieter for many years. We
Blake
of course
Bell.
saw. Here we go with Blake Bell has made it. But guys, the quarterback situation, Blaine Gabbert, I like this. I think Shane Bichelle didn't do himself any favors. I think the decision had already been made. The Chiefs knew what they had in Blaine Gabbert, guys. Big, strong-armed, sat behind Tom Brady. He's been in this league now for, this is, I guess, 13th year. Started as a first-round pick at the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's been a backup at San Francisco, has a Super Bowl ring, backing up Tom Brady in Tampa. Blaine Gabbert's a smart guy, knows offenses. I think a more talented Chad Henne. So when you get that in here, at some point you may have to have a situation where backup quarterback's got to win you a game. Yep. And I think Blaine Gabbert is just the guy to do that. So Blaine Gabbert's here, Noah, 10 years later, just as a backup quarterback to the greatest quarterback we've ever seen. So we didn't get it 100% right.
Not 100%, but you never know what can happen. Hopefully nothing. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to speak it into existence, but I'm going to speak this. Blaine Gabbert had a quote on Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes. That's why I brought this up. He says, they're maniacal perfectionists. And I meant that in the most endearing way possible. They are 2 of the best, in my opinion, to ever play the game. So that's what he had to say from his time with Tom Brady and his limited time right now as Patrick Mahomes' official backup.
I love the signing of Blaine Gabbert being the backup. He's got the swagger. As Trent Green said, he looks like a quarterback getting off the bus. But to me, when he gets off the bus, he looks like he's about to enter a NASCAR. And with that beard and the scrag, he looks like he's about to say, I got my car ready. I'm ready to go around circles.
Hey, he's from St. Louis, not Mobile.
There you go. And I think that they were showcasing Shane Bichelle. If you remember, Andy Reid was able to get a second-round draft pick in 2005 from the Miami Dolphins for A.J. Thiele. Because A.J. Thiele looked good in his brief little tight window time with the Philadelphia Eagles, and they were able to get a second-round draft pick. Fast forward to 7 years later, I think it was 2010 or 2011, Andy Reid was able to get a second-round draft pick for Kevin Kolb by the Arizona Cardinals. So I think that maybe they were hoping they would see some good things. I don't know if they really were expecting a second-round draft pick out of Shane Bichelle in return, but I think that they wanted to showcase him more to possibly – get that pick, but it didn't work out. He could be a practice squad player. So could Oladokun. Oladokun looked pretty good in his first ever play. He's a kid from Tampa Bay who I don't know where he went to college. I know they said he's from Tampa Bay, and if Oladolkin wants to come back and be on the practice squad, I'm sure they'll welcome him, because he showed me a lot of desire and a lot of want to make things happen. It didn't seem like the game was too big for him. He kept his head on a swivel and his feet moving. So I like it. But I like Blaine Gabbert. Like I said, he's a seasoned veteran. He's backed up Tom Brady. He's backing up Patrick Mahomes. We just need a solid guy to come in there, win, and if, God forbid, Patrick Mahomes decides to take a few plays off.
Yeah, and for anybody who's upset about like the Shane Buechele thing, thinking he's more talented, he should have won the backup role, he performed better in the preseason. It's not just about talent, and who knows if he is more talented than Blaine Gabbert. Maybe he showed a little bit more this preseason. I don't know. But I will say that the backup quarterback, Andy Reid, likes a veteran. He wants someone that can go on the Microsoft Surface, like Clint said, and point around and tell Patrick Mahomes what he's seeing, what he thinks. He's been around Tom Brady. He's been in this league. He's been a starter, and he can sit there and go through things with Patrick and help be just a sounding board, an idea guy. And I don't know if Shane Buechele's ready to do that. He hasn't been a starter. He's still young in this league. And so while he may have been maybe a smidge more talented or shown more this preseason than Blaine Gabbert, just the mind and the veteran presence of Blaine Gabbert won him that backup role.
I believe Blaine Gabbert was the #1 rated passer in the preseason in the NFL.
He did have like 5 touchdown passes. I think
and Shane Buechele had a really bad outing here against the Browns.
Thanks to Juan Thornhill.
Yeah, week 3. And, it's not just about, just like you said, it's not just about talent. Hey, Morgan, you're okay. You're here with us. You're checking us out. We got love for you. The show is still going, so you're perfect time. You can go and rewatch
exactly
all of our episodes.
We're on demand, baby.
Man, facts. But yeah, I think that it's not just about being a talent, because the expectation is that we hope that Blaine Gabbert never has to see the field when it comes to the regular season or postseason. So you want a guy that Pat can share information with and pick up stuff. A guy like Shane, yeah, he's talented, but he probably doesn't have the mind. He doesn't have the years under his belt like Blaine, that he can sit back and, share information with Patrick Mahomes. So Andy Reid knows what he's doing. We were saying it here on the show, like Andy likes to keep his veteran guys, and that's a vet that you can't let go of. But shout out to Dakota, who said that it's a bummer that no Bushman, on the roster, which
I like Bushman.
No, I do like Bushman, but it comes down to, that Travis and Noah Gray are the top 2. Do you go with this young guy that, you're not sure what he's going to do once the real live action starts, or do you go with the veteran? And once again, Blake Bell is a veteran, and I'm sad to say, I think he's also there because
not the tight ends run.
The Bill quarterback sneak is still alive, so I guess we're going to be seeing that this season. So let's get ready.
The Belldozer.
The Belldozer.
But guys, before we kind of get out of here, it's been a great show. Had Bill Maas on talking through this 53-man roster. I just went through and just kind of did my dream broadcasting teams, because why not? It's something fun to do. And so my first one, these go back in the day: Mike Patrick, Joe Theismann, and Dan Deerdorf. Part of those were already a crew on the Sunday Night Football with Mike Patrick and Joe Theismann, but they had Paul McGuire. I might have put Paul on a different team here, but I thought Dan Deerdorf would be good there. One of my favorites of all time. And the second team, Dick Enberg, Ron Jaworski, and Paul McGuire. He makes his appearance here. God, you love Dick Enberg. Oh my! Gotta love that call.
He hung on a little too long, poor Dick. I do like Dick Enberg.
Yeah, he was. Those are legends there. I liked NBC. I even liked Dick Enberg with Bob Trumpy, but those guys there were really well. I mean, I grew up with Dick Enberg.
Where does John Madden John Madden have to probably be on mine.
Al Michaels, John Madden, Greg Gumbel. I love Greg Gumbel.
I don't need 3 guys. Give me John Madden and Pat Summerall, and we have fun.
Right.
So with those 2 guys alone, man, they can make it a great, great experience.
Definitely.
That's a good call. I do like a 2-man booth, and I do feel like broadcasting has just diminished. It's probably just I'm almost 40, so I'm entering that mode of just everything new sucks and everything that was happened in the 80s is amazing, and not always the case. For instance, the Kansas City Chiefs. But I feel like today that there is not a lot of teams that stand out as much as back then. I mean, the Monday Night Football crew, Frank Frank Allen Dan, that was a character on the show. That was like part of the game so much that you just couldn't look past that. And now Monday Night Football can never get it together. It's in and out. Steve Levy and it's just never. Sean McDonough a couple years ago, like it's just Monday Night Football can't really get it figured out.
Miller.
I'm not of course, I'm not a big Tony Romo guy anymore. I feel like he's gone way downhill since he started, and
I don't like Jim Nantz either. So
I'm struggling to find crews that it's
Kevin Harlan and Trent Green.
I do like that team. The Chiefs rarely get them because they're not the number one CBS crew.
Right. They should be.
They should be.
They should be. I liked Kevin Harlan and Rich Gannon. Rich Gannon just does
Sirius XM radio.
Yeah, you guys talk to him every year for Radio Row. I can always count on you guys talking to Rich Gannon.
We love Rich.
Yeah, I think he does Raiders. He did the Raiders preseason. I don't know if he's doing Radio's network radio with them. But man, I grew up on so many. We could discuss these guys in depth. And but yeah,
we need some young guys. We need to hopefully get some younger guys in there just to give, that fresh sound and look.
We need, what's that guy's name? Oh my gosh, I'm getting
We reported it.
The guy that went to Fox, the guy left to do college football. He was with Tasker. Gus
Johnson.
Yes. Gus Johnson, that guy was electric.
Yeah, Gus's talents are being somewhat wasted on Fox college football.
Oh, man, yeah. And they're always the game. It's on like 11:30 Central Time.
Yes.
Gus Johnson's calling this game in Oregon. They need to bring Gus Johnson back to the NFL. He was my favorite. I thought, man, sky's the limit for him. Yeah, but he was always bottom on the CBS with Steve Tasker and whatnot.
And he's missed on March Madness, like he's since he moved to Fox. It's like, oh my gosh. We even get our buddy Tim Brando from time to time. We'll do some NFL games, and I'm a huge fan of his. But yeah, guys, this is all the NFL nerddom coming out of all of us here. We love
nerds.
Whether it be uniforms, broadcasters. We can
show Mahomes' dominance over the AFC West. That's fun.
Jeez.
Oh, hey, it's always good with that.
Yeah, Hey, when does he lose? Like, I'm really curious to see, like, if he's going to pick up a L this year against the AFC West, because
I am not
curious for that. His dominance is so great when it comes to the division. I'm like, man, can he win another? 6 games?
Yes.
Well, yeah, I think this is the year that the Chiefs lose the game to Denver. I just feel it.
Yeah,
I feel it, and I don't.
In a row.
I don't think Denver's even that good. I'm not predicting them to be a playoff team. I just feel like it's going to be one of those Colts situations of just like you go to Denver,
drops a punt, and
that kid. Well, that's just a weird hypothetical that would surely never happen.
Kicker misses 2 kicks.
Yeah, it just feels like one of those moments. Like it's just the streak has gone on so long since. Gosh, September of 2015, the Chiefs have just owned the Denver Broncos, but a lot of close games. And I feel like Sean Payton, as brash as he is, it's just like, oh, look at us. We beat the Chiefs in my first year. And, of course, they go on and do nothing, and the Chiefs are 13-4, the one seed in the AFC. But, one of the losses is to Denver. I don't know. We'll see. We'll bust out our major predictions, guys. Next week, we'll get all of it, records, order of finish, all of it.
That's going to be an ultimate pregame show next Tuesday, because it's 48 hours before kickoff.
That's a good point.
Man, thank you, everybody, for in the scrolls. Tom Hood and everybody
great.
else.
Everybody.
James T. Kirk's always here.
James T. Kirk and everybody, Michael. Man, I'm looking forward to next Tuesday. Thanks again, Billy Bob Maas. You're a Kansas City legend. I remember we drafted you in 1984 when I was 14 and got to watch you succeed and become a legend in Kansas City, man. Thanks a lot for having me on again. You guys are awesome. Keep at the Patrick Mahomes fan page. Keep following Starcade. We got you covered. We're the Arrowhead Allies, baby.
Shane said it best, and all I got to say is go Chiefs.